It is wonderful to be here, and I feel really honored to be following Dale. Dale, thank you. I think you'll see so many connections between what you shared and what we're getting into today. And what you also, how you call this a community of kindness, just really resonates for me. I've been a part of the SIS community for a number of years now, and it really does feel like a homecoming. So thank you to everybody working so hard to make it so, and to all of you here who bring that family, who bring that community, who bring that spirit to these few days together. And I am so excited to be talking about that, about the power of partnerships, and specifically about the power of partnerships in transforming mental health impact with two truly incredible leaders towards that, with Elisha London, the founder and CEO of Prospira, and with Kim Baker, the senior director at the UN Foundation, who leads their Peace on Purpose work. I appreciate that peace is a theme, through these two panels. Yeah. So my name is Wintroub, and I head up the Center for Social Impact at Lululemon. I hope you all have had a chance to get to know Lululemon today, to play around with our claw machine and to visit our well-being lounge. And we are in this work of well-being and have been, since we started as a company, but in a very focused way for the past 4 years, since we established our Center for Social Impact with the goal of impacting 10 million people with well-being tools and resources by 2025. And because of the work of incredible partners like the UN Foundation, like United for Global Mental Health, like NAMI, and so many others in this space today, I'm just so pleased to share that we were able to achieve that goal early. And we are now setting forward on our path to 2030 with an increasing focus on mental health. We recognize, as I know so many of you in this room do, just the extent of the mental health crisis globally. That 1 in 5 US adults is experiencing a mental health condition. That 1 in 7 young people globally are experiencing mental health conditions, and that those young people, 1 in 4 young people, are living with a parent or a caregiver with mental health conditions. So I just feel really grateful to be getting into this work with direct service providers, with those who are leading advocacy and policy changing efforts, as we really seek to address this growing global crisis all together. So let's get into the topic at hand today. Kim and Elisha, we'd love to hear more about your why in this work. So Kim, let's start with you.
Thank you, Anne. So just a little bit about Peace on Purpose. Peace on Purpose is a program that provides humanitarian workers with trauma-informed, mindfulness-based resources. And we currently work in partnership with the UN. So for those of you who had the opportunity to attend the breakout this morning that Anne so beautifully facilitated, you heard about the important work that UN agencies like UNICEF are doing to support mental health for young people. And what Peace on Purpose does is we support those providers so that we can ensure that they are taking care of their own mental health and well-being as well. So I started my career working for the UN and similar international humanitarian organizations, living and working in Ukraine and Afghanistan, and I quickly realized that all of the resources that I had relied on up to that point in time to tend for my own well-being and mental health were all luxuries, like going to a Pilates class or even going for a run and feeling safe as a woman. And I didn't want to continue to feel hopeless and helpless. And through studying about meditation and mindfulness, I realized that there is a whole toolkit available to us that doesn't depend on external resources. And that's my personal reason for bringing Peace on Purpose to others. I've also had the firsthand opportunity to see that the work that the UN does is critical and life-saving, and unfortunately, it's needed now more than ever. And we need those people on the front lines to be well. The world needs those people on the front lines to be well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And Elisha, more about your why.
My why starts from a little bit of a different perspective. While I have experienced my own mental health challenges with PTSD and depression, my journey started at Kensington Palace in London, a little surreal, where I was invited to run the mental health campaign for the then Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry. And I came into that work having never worked in mental health before, but having worked in global health and development and philanthropy and impact. And it was during my time there at Heads Together that I spent a lot of time reflecting on the fact that I hadn't heard mental health being discussed in the global discourse or seen any global funders. So there were a lot of late nights at Kensington Palace reading, and then around 6 months after the campaign to explore the global landscape. And what I found really shocked me. There really was very little happening, despite the fact depression was still on track to be the leading cause of disease burden by 2030. And so I founded United for Global Mental Health to see that global galvanization of prioritization and action. But today, my why is very much rooted in private sector action. And the reason for that is I believe now, especially now, the catalytic impact that can come from partnerships from the private sector is very much what we need, because we just haven't seen the level of action and investment worldwide. So at Prospira, that's what we do. We work with leading brands. We've advised and catalyzed over $250 million in new global funding for mental health over the last 3 years. The industry convenings and guidelines across sectors, and we do a range of research. And it's the impact that comes from that private sector action leading to tangible impact that is my why every day.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it is remarkable the progress that has been made, which I know you have been, so much a catalyst for, the progress that has been made in just these few short years, and yet the distance that we have to go. And as with all effective partnerships, funding is so key to this progress. And Elisha, Prospira just published the Power of Giving report. I think there's QR codes somewhere, so you all can take a look on that. I highly recommend it. It's a really vital read. So can you share with us, and just set the scene, sharing some insights from that report on the state of mental health funding?
Yeah, absolutely. The overarching message is the scale of the global need, and it is increasing, is nowhere near. The financing is nowhere near it needs to be. So if we talk about a couple of numbers, for governments, on average, 2% of a health budget is where mental health currently sits. We have about a $200 billion global gap in mental health financing. And if we just look at global financing, so actually back in 2017, as I was doing research, I found this, I read this one report that showed $135 million was the total aggregate global spend across borders. There were very few companies, very few funders, and so you can see just how far we have to go. But we do see that there is a change. It's been since around 2021, which is very much why we started the work in the private sector, to come alongside funders who are stepping into the space, that we have seen an acceleration. So a couple of trends we're seeing, around 50% of that funding is from the private sector. It's really hard to find information about who's doing what, and so we published a report to do that. There's a top 10 list of the top global funders, of which lululemon is one. Congratulations.
Yes.
And thank you. But a number of the trends that we're seeing a push for integration. So maybe funders who focused on gender are now realizing that actually it's really important to provide mental health support in economic empowerment work, say for women. We're seeing a push to community-based care, and we're seeing actually most of the large global funders are companies, and we're seeing that's coming not only from their workforce demand, but also from their customers. And so some really interesting trends for us to look at. If you're interested, do have a read, and we are conducting a global survey for that from companies and funders and investors from around the world. Please do kind of add your voice if you're interested, or just reading that this year.
No, and it's so helpful to hear what you're seeing, and I'd love to hear what you want to see, right? Particularly with so many in the space on the philanthropic side, just how you envision public-private partnerships and private financing of mental health solutions in order to truly drive meaningful progress?
The most important thing that we want to see is leaning into our leverage and our power. So there is so much the private sector has. You can move fast, you can be catalytic, and you have access. If we think about some global multinational companies, the reach that you have on the ground through communications can be so powerful to leverage. But it's also really important that's done in hand with public support to make sure that's available. And so it's when those things come together with civil society that we see that magic happen. And I think Peace on Purpose is a great example of where we're seeing that come together. And so I'm excited to hear a little more.
Yeah, well, I'll take that away.
I'll take
so
that.
When Elisha, when you were setting up at Kensington Palace, you know, Kim and the UN Foundation and Lululemon were setting up the Peace on Purpose program. So this program was co-created in 2017, a big year for all of us certainly, in order, as Kim began to share, to really care for the mental health and well-being of UN crisis workers, just with the recognition that we must care for those who are caring for others all across the globe. And I know we don't need to share with anyone in this room the velocity with which the need for care of UN workers has increased in the past 10 years, in the past decade. So Kim, we've just been so proud and grateful to be in this work with the UN Foundation again since back in 2017. And I'd love to hear from your perspective just how this partnership has addressed the growing need for mental health solutions on the front line within the UN community and more generally amongst frontline workers.
Yeah, so for a little bit of context, humanitarian workers live and work in extremely volatile environments where surveys show that at least 50% experience burnout or similar mental health challenges. Peace on Purpose takes an innovative and non-traditional approach to providing these humanitarian workers with mindfulness-based tools to care for themselves so that they can more effectively care for others. We teach both the theory behind mindfulness as well as the actual mindfulness practices so that people can walk out of our workshop with a skill set that they can integrate into their daily life. And together with a team of international facilitators and the UN, we have been able to scale up our model of both in-person and digital programs to reach over 24,000 people across 177 countries. But what's really sets our program apart is the level of adaptation that we do to our curriculum before we bring our program to a new country in person.
So important. Sorry, interrupt.
No, thank you.
We were talking about this earlier. It's so easy to sometimes take a program and think it can be scaled, but the nuances that are needed at the country level are so different from country to country.
Yeah, and so just a small example of this type of cultural adaptation that I'm referencing. Our team was recently in Kabul, Afghanistan this past April, where it's culturally inappropriate and unsafe for men and women to socialize in the same public space. And so for our workshop, we did invite all genders into the same workshop space, but for the sections of our workshop where we practice mindful movement, we brought in wooden screens and invited the women to one side of the screens so that we were able to practice mindful movement together in the same room and ensure that the women felt safe in the presence of men.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm always struck by so much about the program, but especially the scale of being in 177 countries with that level of cultural adaptation is remarkable, and the UN is such an excellent partner towards delivering that work. And Elisha, I know like there's one view of impact, which is being in 177 countries, and I know Prospira, you've been working on a deep assessment of the impact of Peace on Purpose work. So we'd love to learn about your findings and what you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really delighted to partner with Peace on Purpose to undertake this impact assessment. I think there's so much happening in this space, and it's just really important that when programs are implemented, if funders are wondering what to fund, that there is the evidence behind them. So overall, what we found was, especially in this current environment, this kind of work is more crucial than ever. We undertook kind of mass surveys across 120 countries and also alongside in-depth interviews. And we found that people who participated in the Peace on Purpose program. Sorry.
A lot of peace.
A lot of peace happening.
A lot of peace,
Peace
a lot
on
of
Purpose program. Overwhelmingly believe that support for their mental health and well-being has helped them to improve their personal resilience, as we've just talked about, and productivity. So a couple of findings, these haven't been published yet, but just to give you a sneak peek of them, nearly 3/4 of our participants surveyed, 71% said that they find they are now more effective at work. And this particularly comes down to having a greater ability to focus. Over 3/4, 78%, found that they're better able to handle stresses in their life, and this was both personal but also in the workplace. And felt more resilient as a result. And we heard a lot about using the kind of emotional intelligence work that was happening through the program, bringing that in and being able to identify their emotions, being able to have a greater sense of calm and clarity. There's one example which really comes to mind for me from the research, which was this man kind of talked about, sometimes if you're in an incredibly stressful situation and you get an email, that can be can make you quite angry and you can be quite reactive. Now felt he had the tools to be able to process that emotion, consider with clarity, and respond kind of in a productive and calm way. These are small things, just as an example of the kind of impact. 80% of people experience positive impacts on their overall well-being, so greater sense of self-care, improved physical health as well we saw, better sleep, less tension, and less sick days at work as well. And nearly 2/3 of participants talked not only about their own experience, but also how it impacted their leadership and the wider environment. So an overall sense of being able to be more rational, compassionate, as we've talked about, and empathetic to their teams, and having a healthier sense of team. And with that, being able to connect with a sense of purpose in their work. So it's been really brilliant to see these results of the impact of the program. And also to say, kind of, as we need a lot more support worldwide, this is obviously in the promotion and prevention side, not the treatment side of mental health conditions, but absolutely crucial to have solutions like this that can be scaled, especially as we look at this increasing global need.
It's amazing. And Kim, I mean, there's no better time to hope and plan for the future than when you have an assessment such as the one that Elisha and Prospira provided. So, I'd love to learn more about what you and the UN Foundation are seeing and hoping for in the future of Peace on Purpose.
Yeah, thank you. So, based on the overwhelmingly positive results from our impact assessment, as you've just heard, we see the potential of adapting Peace on Purpose to other sectors while continuing to serve the really important work of the UN. So to that end, we are partnering with CARE and Prospira Global to adapt the program and pilot it for factory managers in Southeast Asia this November. There's a lot of really important work being done in this space to empower women and improve workplace conditions. And research shows that by integrating programs focused on mental health, such as a program like Peace on Purpose, it can only lead to better outcomes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I know we're at time, but I've really appreciated learning more about the program generally, and especially today with the two of you, and I hope this serves as a pretty remarkable example of a sustained public-private partnership that we are so proud to be a part of at Lululemon. So I'm just so grateful for the work that you do, for your validation of the work, and so eager for what's to come. And thank you for being with us today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Anne.